Welcome to video number 2 of the EnviroStore training series. In this video, we'll cover how to schedule an activity for your project in EnviroStore. Once you have logged into EnviroStore, you will be taken to the initial EnviroStore page. The 5 major headings on this page are Project Tools, Search Tools, Work Requests, Reports, and Other Tools. For this video, we'll be concentrating on the Manage Projects tab under the Project Tools heading. Click on that. You'll arrive at the page in EnviroStore that has all of your projects listed where you are the lead DTSC project manager. If you're brand new to DTSC, you may not have any projects assigned to you yet. If that's the case, check with your supervisor and have he or she update the projects to which you'll be assigned. Once you have projects assigned to you, you'll be ready to schedule activities and input other information about your sites. First step, select the site you want to work on by clicking on it. You'll automatically be taken to the Activities Report screen for that site. This is perhaps the most important screen for project managers in EnviroStore, because this is where you will input all the activities, tasks, and meetings that you want to schedule for your site. To begin, let's go over some of the items you see on this screen. In the upper left, you'll see a drop-down box. This drop-down box contains 22 separate tabs for screens that correspond to information related to your project. In this video, we'll be concentrating on the tab titled Activities Report, where we are now. Below the drop-down box, you'll see some general information about the project and then 3 main activity types: those that have been scheduled, those that have been completed, and any activities that were incomplete or not accepted. Any scheduled activities that are overdue will show up in red colored text. At the bottom is an area that shows scheduled meetings. A meeting is listed in this section whether start or end dates are already passed or still to occur in the future, regardless of the meeting type or meeting frequency. There are 2 types of activities in EnviroStore: regulatory action activities and deliverable activities, or deliverables. A regulatory action activity is an activity or document typically generated by the department. A deliverable activity is an activity or document typically generated by the responsible party or their consultant, which is then sent to the department for review or approval. We'll start by scheduling a regulatory activity. A standard voluntary agreement as an example. First, click on the Schedule New Activity hyperlink. Under Document Type, you'll see a drop-down box. Select Standard Voluntary Agreement from the selections in this box. Note that the document types displayed in green text are milestone activities and also part of our performance measures. These can either be a regulatory action or a deliverable, depending on the document type being scheduled. The activities in the list are based on the site type. If you can't find the appropriate activity, contact your project analyst or supervisor. If you have multiple operable units or sites associated with your project, a drop-down box will appear requesting that you select the appropriate operable unit or site that applies to the activity you're scheduling. If the activity applies to the entire project, select Project-Wide. If there are no operable units or sites associated with your project, this drop-down box will not appear. Setting up multiple operable units or sites within a project will be covered in a separate video tutorial. Select the correct site code within the Site Code drop-down box. Since this is a test project, there is no site code to select, but this is where you select them for real projects. Since this is a regulatory activity, in the Start Date PRP Draft Due Date box, put in the date you think you will begin working on this activity. In the title box, provide a name for the activity. Click the Schedule This Activity button. You will be brought to the Activity Schedule screen for this particular activity, and it is now a scheduled activity for your site. We'll talk about the items you see on this page a bit later on. But for now, notice that the proposed due date for the DTSC Draft and Review task equals the start date you selected, plus the number of days in the Days box for that task. Also notice that regulatory activities default to a 3-step process. Note that EnviroStore auto-populates the number of days for each phase of the activity. Typically, the cumulative number of days corresponds to the Lean Six Sigma goal that DTSC strives to achieve for the activity if one exists. Regardless, you can change the number of days for any phase of the activity if you choose. Just remember to hit the Save Changes button after doing so. Now let's go back and schedule a deliverable activity. Go back to the Activities Report page by clicking on the Activities Report hyperlink either at the top center of the page or in the drop-down box in the upper left corner. We'll start again by clicking on the Schedule New Activity hyperlink. This time we'll schedule a Preliminary Endangerment Assessment Report activity as an example. This is a deliverable activity generated by the responsible party or the consultant. Just as you did before, use the drop-down box under Document Type, but this time select Preliminary Endangerment Assessment Report. Again, note the documents in green text that show milestone activities used in performance measures. Select the correct operable unit or site if one applies. Select the site code within the Site Code drop-down box. In the Start Date PRP Draft Due Date box, put in the date you think the responsible party or their consultant will submit the document to DTSC for review. In the title box, provide a name for the activity. Click the Schedule This Activity button. Now let's talk about some of the items you see on this screen. You will be brought to the Activity Schedule screen for this activity, and it is now a scheduled activity for your project. Note that the due date for the RP draft task is the same as the start date you entered for this activity. Also note that deliverable activities are displayed in a 6-step process screen as a default. As before, the auto-populated number of days for each phase of the activity should add up to the Lean Six Sigma timeframe goals, but you can change them if necessary. The title. This is the title of the activity as you entered it when scheduling the activity. One thing to note here, if the document has a lengthy title, try and condense it to a manageable yet appropriate size, or ask your supervisor about doing so. Document type. This is the type of activity you selected when scheduling the activity. Note that if you can't find the appropriate activity in the drop-down box, check with your supervisor. Commitment date. This is the date you are committing to completing the activity. This is different from the actual date of completion and is displayed on the public side of EnviroStore. Typically, the commitment date should be about 2 months after the calculated completion date. When you first schedule an activity, you'll notice that the commitment date and the calculated completion date are the same. So you'll need to revise the commitment date to reflect the additional 2 months. How to do that is demonstrated in video tutorial number 3. Version. This is the phase of the activity. Days. This is the number of calendar days each version is expected to take. As mentioned, EnviroStore initially auto-populates this field for each version, and the cumulative number of days typically meet the Lean Six Sigma goals if one exists for the activity. Calculated completion date. This is the date completion of an activity is anticipated and is the sum of the total number of days of each version. Revise date. These boxes are used when you need to revise a version's due date. Completed date. This is the date a version is actually completed. Note, all versions should have a completed date even if you skipped a version during the process. For example, if your consultant is able to provide a final document after DTSC's initial comments, then you will not be receiving an RP draft final document, nor will DTSC be reviewing an RP draft final document. In such cases, you should enter the same completion date for both of those skipped versions as the initial DTSC comments version. Upload document. This is a link to upload draft or final documents. How to upload documents is covered in video tutorial number 3. Add comment. This is a link to add comments to any version of the activity. Adding comments is covered in video tutorial number 3. Edit header or draft due date. This is the link to edit the activity schedule. Editing scheduled activity is covered in Video Tutorial 4. Delete this deliverable. This is the link to delete the deliverable activity. If the activity is a regulatory action, this link will change to delete this regulatory action. Deleting activities is covered in Video Tutorial number 5. View uploaded documents. This is a link to view all uploaded documents to this activity. If the text is black and not underlined, that means there are no uploaded documents. The text will be blue and underlined once the document is added to any version of the activity. When scheduling an activity, you can also choose what's called a simple schedule. This schedule is often used for activities where you plan to accept the initial document as a final version. The simple schedule screen is selected by checking the simple schedule checkbox, which is available for both regulatory actions and deliverables. Let's add a monitoring report to show this process. We'll start from the Activities Report screen and again click on the Schedule New Activity. Hyperlink. We'll go through the same process of selecting a document type, in this case a monitoring report. We'll also select the OU or site, if applicable, and a site code, as well as our start date. And a title. Only this time, we'll check the Simple Schedule box. A simple schedule is a two-step process for both regulatory and deliverable activities. After checking the Simple Schedule box, click the Schedule the Activity action button. You'll see your scheduled activity now has the Simple Schedule screen showing the two-step process. Nothing else has changed, however, and this activity can be modified or deleted just like any other scheduled activity. Thank you for watching video number 2 of the EnviroStore training series. If you need additional training on this aspect of EnviroStore, please go to the Site Mitigation and Restoration Program, or SMRP, homepage on DTSC's SharePoint and click on the eStore Training and Tutorials quick link.